Hi, I'm Dr. Anna Ansola, the principal of Hearing Doctors. All the patients that we get to meet and work with every day, they have a unique story about their hearing journey, and I would like to share some of those with you.
So I've been struggling with hearing loss, had been for several years, and after really starting to notice that my hearing or lack of hearing was impacting me both professionally and personally, and then also understanding the impact it could have to my balance, causing me to potentially fall as an example, or just understanding if it's not corrected, it could result in more permanent impact to the way that I am processing language. I realized it was time that I needed to really investigate this more seriously and look into options to correct my hearing problem. Prior to having the hearing devices, I found myself in environments where I interact a lot with senior executives, really individuals, throughout various types of organizations, and oftentimes in meetings, in-person meetings, and other situations where, I really had to be engaged, listening and understanding what our clients' challenges were, and really interacting with them as well as my teams. And I found that I was just having such difficulty really hearing well and understanding what was being said, and would have to ask repeatedly for them to repeat themselves, or I would really struggle to hear. And I think really sometimes I would miss some very key conversations as a result of that. Prior to getting the hearing aids, I did find myself, and sometimes I didn't realize it until it wasn't until after I got the hearing aids I realized the impact that they had fully. I would be very anxious at times going into a meeting, as an example, because depending on the environment, or if it was a crowded situation, or just the acoustics in the room, it could really impact my ability to hear well. And it did cause a lot of anxiety at times, because I just didn't know how I was going to be able to perform up to the best of my abilities in the meetings, and really support the needs of the business. That was true on a social level too. Depending on the situation, if it was a very crowded room or it was a crowded restaurant, I may or may not be able to hear the conversation. And so I found myself after a while really disengaging a bit. Whether it was a personal situation or professional situation, I would find myself maybe engaging less, and just really not speaking up as much as I would normally, because I wasn't really certain if I was hearing the right thing, and if I was really in the conversation and as engaged as I needed to be in terms of understanding the discussion. So I said nothing. I don't think I never fully appreciated how much I was losing out on until after I got the hearing aids. And then I have had so many instances where I've had meetings, and my ability to be able to hear the conversation regardless of where I was sitting in the room, or what environment I was in, was just really, it was liberating for me. It was such a sense of relief, and I just I didn't stress about, am I going to be able to hear when I went into a meeting. It just really helped my confidence level return. It helped my engagement, and I think that overall I just felt so much better about situations, and didn't have to worry as much about what's going to happen. Am I going to be able to do what I need to? And personally, it's the same. And some of the stressors, whether it was a personal or a professional environment, is after a while I just hated having to ask people to repeat themselves. It would get frustrating. I know it would get frustrating for my husband, and it would get frustrating for me to have to ask. And so I would either miss a conversation, or I would have to ask somebody to repeat themselves. And after I got the devices and really started to get used to them, my husband has actually really made comments about the difference. And in fact, sometimes he can tell pretty quickly if I forgot to put them in. He'll ask me if I have my hearing aids in. I'm like, oh no, I know I need to go put them in. So it's pretty noticeable, the difference to everyone. I like to play tennis. It's a relatively new sport for me, and so I take a lot of lessons as well. And I would find myself in situations where I couldn't hear the coach very well, so it's kind of hard to improve if you can't hear what they're telling you to to do in order to improve. And so whether I was playing indoors or outdoors, that could be a challenge for me. And also I do play a lot of doubles tennis, and it's really important to be able to communicate with your partner when you're on the court. And if I couldn't hear what they were saying, that too was a challenge for me, and it would just make it a little bit more difficult to play as a team as well as we should have. So once I started wearing the hearing aids, I could actually hear what the coaches were telling me, and so I could really make the improvements or make the adjustments that I needed to. And then, of course, playing, it made it much easier when I was playing with a team member, because I could actually hear and we could interact more, and we didn't have to speak loudly, and that way opponents couldn't hear what we were saying too. So it just really helped in both of those areas as far as my tennis game goes. When I did my research and came across Dr. Himmler, she got very good ratings and seemed to have really good patient care, and that was important to me. And also, it's from my research, it seemed like she would be able to provide me with a range of options for consideration. When I met with her for the first time and had my consultation, really we went through, she asked me a lot of questions about what my challenges were, what my lifestyle was, what my priorities were, and I had some very specific ideas, and I explained to her what my priorities were. And based on that discussion, she made a recommendation for the devices that she eventually fitted me with. And I have to say that I was really impressed, because I think that she zeroed in on exactly what I needed. And it provided the right balance of, me really being able to feel like I could just still just move around freely, not have to worry about the device going to fall off my ear, making sure that it was able to be kept somewhat concealed, depending on if I was wearing my hair up or down, or, again, if I was very active, I didn't want to have to worry about any issues with the device. And also, I was wanting to make sure that the device was, I'd say, fairly self-sufficient. In other words, I wouldn't have to make a lot of adjustments to it. And really based on that criteria, she narrowed it down very quickly for me, what she recommended. And again, I couldn't be more pleased with it.
If you or someone you love is suffering from hearing loss, tinnitus, or balance disorders, please visit our website at hearingdoctors.com.